Kia ora koutou, how's it? Jade from Kapa Order here. Uh, I've got a human design chart up in front of me, mine, and I'm going to be running us through a bit of a jam session on what all these s- symbols and shapes and everything mean. And we're just going to jam on um, getting you familiar with the power of human design, what all this stuff means that you see. You know, when I do readings, as soon as I share my screen, this is what I see. What does da 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 mean? So I want to make some content to help us understand. So for those of you that maybe do decide to have a reading, you've got uh, a bit of mātauranga, a bit of knowledge in your back pocket about what you're looking at, and it's not so like whoa, it doesn't look like code. So it's going to be a bit of me talking to the chart and a bit of me just jamming on intuitively what comes up. Um, so just to give you a bit of background, I've been a coach for 9 years now, and I started out by helping people move from A to B or shifting certain perspectives, beliefs, behaviors, not knowing a thing about human design and really just working with the internal parts and archetypes within a person, and that is very powerful. And then I learned human design, and it's like we're working with that with um, these archetypes and this blueprint, which shows us sort of what specific archetypes and what specific tendencies and aspects of ourselves come up, and all these numbers um, reference different types of archetypes. And then um, through my recent teachings, it's about bringing more of who I am into the teaching. So really bringing it through a Māori lens as well. So I often make reference to, um, you know, how I see the world as a Māori wahine as well. So when I learned human design, I learned about the power of our uniqueness, and I learned that look, we're not all built the same. And just a little bit of an intro. I've made other content on it, but we're like a whānau, and human design. Well, actually, this was actually a wānanga, a discussion that I had today with one of my sisters, and we were like really zooming in on at the core of everything. Family, whānau, is so important because it really touches on the heart of the matter, which is for humanity. It's about coming back to love, back to aroha, and whānau, family, brings us back to that place. It's the thing in the world for most people, and I do like appreciate that not everybody's family situation is the same, and people have different experiences, and for the most part, whānau brings, is this connection to um, love. And going a bit deep here, as it so seems, is because when we come through our mama, so what we may not have in common is our family stories and our experiences in growing up, but what is absolutely universal is that every human being came from a mama, came from a woman. And that is just absolute. That is how it goes. And where we came from in our mama is the womb. And when we are in the womb, when we come through as a seed, he kākano, when we come through as a seed, we come through from another place. Oh, we're going deep here. We are a seed in te kore, in the womb of creation, before we even ended up inside of our mama. And so, you know, and our papa, before we come from the seed inside of our papa and come into our mama, we were a seed in te kore, which is the womb of creation. We were our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents thought us into creation. And so we are this seed inside of creation waiting to happen. And in this place, in te kore, in the void, in the nothingness, there is infinite potential. And all there is love, you know, love, creation. That's all there is. So that we come through our papa seed into our mama and we are created. And then we come through her whare tangata, her womb, into the world, into te ao marama. And when we come through as a child, we don't know nothing but love, right? We are love. We remember when we're fresh out the womb, we remember. That's why babies have so much joy, And then over time, as we grow up, you know, the game is that every human being forgets over time, and it's to nobody's particular fault. It's just the way that being human works. We learn, we grow up, and we forget. We forget that we are pure love. We have come from that place. And yes, we may have had experiences that have made us forget that quicker, and live through certain traumas or certain experiences that have caused trauma and caused us to, forget that we are pure love at the core of us, at the very center of us. We may have forgotten that. But the other game, there's another game, and a game that I like playing, which is to remember um, who we are and to remember that at the core of us, it's pure aroha. And that's why whānau, family, is so triggering, so challenging sometimes, because there's the there is this, the deepest ability to connect back to love through our whānau, right? And now, if this is not your experience with whānau, you can reframe this perspective to how you need to. Maybe you've created a whānau that is not blood, or you have a whānau that you consider family, which is not of blood to you, but they are whānau. So you have the agency to reframe that in a way that really uplifts you, rather than hearing a narrative and then, seeing it through one perspective, and letting that bring you down. You really have the agency to let it uplift you. So just shift that perspective or reframe that view however you need to. The point I'm trying to make is that whānau, family, is so powerful because it is a source of you know it represents aroha, even though even though some of our experiences may not feel like there's a lot of love there, but there is always the potential. And with human design, okay, do I want to go there? Yes. With human design, it is about coming back to who we are at the core of us. Human design, we enter in a birth date and a birth time. And if you don't have your birth time, over the course of the 4 years I've been, doing readings and doing strategy sessions with people. If we don't have your birth time, we can get close to it by being able to um, do a bit of an analysis on the different times of the day that you were born. So we've got a way of being able to get close to based on knowing the aspects of a chart, and elicit, like asking you questions and being able to elicit your responses, engaging for your responses. So we use a birth date, we use a birth time, and then the reason for that is because we're pulling where we're pulling where the planets were at the time of your birth. Okay. So human design is underpinned by our planets. Okay. So again, coming back to family and whānau and birth, right? And what and who we were before we learned all of the stuff that we know now, and before we picked up all these behaviors, and before we, were trying to fit in. We're coming back to the basics, which is at the core of us, we are aroha, we are love. And at that point, when we came through, and even before, we were programmed, before we were programmed with all this other stuff that we've learned and picked up along the way, and we were programmed to a unique kind of potential. And human design is about having a look at what that potential looks like for an individual. So that's a pretty good intro, and I'll keep going here. But with human design, there are 5 different types of species, human beings. And this blew my mind when I first learned. This was the thing that blew my mind when I learned about the 5 types. Like, there are levels and levels and levels and levels to this mātauranga, to this knowledge. But when I learned this one little small thing, I was like, it, 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 what's that word I'm looking for? Come on. It set me free. That's the long way of, I'll find that fancy word, but it liberated me. It liberated me from these shackles that I had around me. And here's why. I up until so how old was I when was 2020? I'm gonna say 2020, 2019. I started to learn about human design, and then I quite quickly, when I started experimenting with it, I went down the rabbit hole. And so of learning it and then teaching it and sharing it with my clients. So for about the last four years ish of being like solidly sharing it out in the world, I have lost my train of thought. That happens often. Don't be alarmed, which is cool. Anyway, next. I can't quite figure out whether when I lose my train of thought, I'm absolutely talking shit, or, it was just too powerful a point to like keep going down that track. Whichever. Let me just take a look here and see where we want to go. I don't even know what I was talking about. That's okay. Here we go. Good chat. So there are 5 different types, and this is the part that blew my mind and liberated me. That's right. That's what we're talking about. That's right. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Um, when I Before I learned this, I was building a coaching business, working with clients, doing the things, and I didn't know any of this. And when I was building this coaching business of mine, I was doing the things that other people were doing. Like, I'd be in a mastermind or in a um with other people, like-minded people like me, and I've been taking, somewhat the same action, but I wasn't getting the same result. And I was like, why? You know, why? And then when I learned my human design and how I'm designed to move and operate and communicate in the world, I was like, oh. So these 5 different types: manifester, generator, manifesting generator, projector, reflector. There's different ways that we communicate in the world, that we operate in the world, that we move in the world is different. And I was working alongside a lot of generators, and I'm a projector. So of course I'm going to get different results, because if I'm forcing my energy in a certain way, if I'm forcing my voice and communicating, you know, in a way that's not how I'm designed to communicate and move, then I'm going to repel people, not, you know, not call them in a really inviting way. So I somewhat like went back to the drawing board on how I was going to move in life. And hence why Kapa Ora was birthed and came through, because it's a completely different way of me operating and moving in the world with a pakihi, with a business. And so yeah, there's two parts to my life. One part is I experiment. I learn to experiment for myself. And then from those experiments and things that I verify along the way, then I share them. And I share them just with my inner circle. And then I get to a point where it's embodied, and I like have a lived experience, and I have spoken to enough generators, or I've spoken to enough reflectors, and I've got these lived examples and stories to be able to tell, to come back and actually teach it in this kind of a setting. So, most liberating thing was when I learned that there are five different types, and our energy works in very different ways. And yeah, having experimented this with for the last 4 or 5 years, I'm in a place where and even though I've been doing readings and teaching this for years, I'm really in a place to do something like this where I can speak on it for and teach it in this style for other people to understand. So we're mostly taught, grow up, go to school, get a job, or go to uni, get a job, maybe start a business, and then kind of like do that, and then off you go. Well, how we go about that, you know, for a lot of people, it does matter, because yeah, it's like I've had readings where, I've spoken to people that have been in careers for like 20, 30 years, and they're like, if I had have known this, this would have been really useful. And for most adults, yeah, that is sort of like the realization, like, fuck, I wish I had known this sooner. The real deal here, though, is, if just for a moment, the real deal is that this is this is going to appeal to like everybody, adults included, and adults are at a certain level of like maturity and like seeking self-discovery, etc. And a lot of younger people are also in like right now. And yes, it will appeal to adults, but who this is really for is our children. Like, we have lived a good chunk of our life, a good quarter, or over a quarter of our life. And we've lived, and we've got a lot of lived experience. Human design has come, you know, really into the forefront recently. And it is because it's here to help our children, our rangatahi, our youth, know who they are, okay, through this lens. And there are many other lenses how we can know ourselves, like being a Cook Island Maori wahine. I know myself through the lens of my culture, through the lens of my whānau, the things that have really helped me to move in the world. So this is just one lens that can help us to understand. And how I like to use it is, this is the lens that helps me to navigate this world, this system. You know, I talk about often in my inner circle navigating two worlds. One one side of my world is being a Cook Island Māori wahine, right? And learning my reo and embracing my cultures and learning tikanga and being with whānau and making time to um, keep my kete, my baskets full and being Māori. The other side of the other world that I walk in is the side of me that has to take care of life, you know, house, mahi, work, um, income, life admin, um, plans, you know, logistics, that kind of thing. There's that side of me that operates in the world also. And they are there's different thinking required. Human design helps me navigate this world, you know. It helps me navigate these world and bridge this gap between almost this part of me that listens to my body and my tinana and to nature and my Maori side, the very natural side, and then we've got this other side that kind of has to do what it needs to do sometimes. And human design helps me remember what my potential is, what my unique gifts are, can be. It's a potential, okay? Because we've got to choose it and we've got to walk it. So this human design and gene keys, and I'm a what are you gonna call that thing? A certified guide in gene keys. And gene keys is uh, all these numbers you can see on the screen over here. Um, all these numbers in human design are called gates, and in gene keys they're called keys. And really what the gene keys does is it hones in on a certain part of your human design, which is your incarnation cross, and it goes deep into that, which is the path of your purpose, your passions, and how you're designed to prosper. So Richard Rudd, or Matua Richard Rudd, based in England, he channeled through the gene keys, and he was an early student of Ra Uruhu, who channeled through human design. So um, I have learnt and to a point mastered these systems, but way still learning and absolutely still experimenting. Okay, but I've mastered enough to be able to share with you um, how I use them, right? And when I say mastered, I mean mastery because I've been able to make decisions, I've been able to listen and walk in the world, move in the world, communicate in the world with more mana, with more strength, and knowing in who I am. So, without further ado, let's actually have a look at the chart. Okay, gonna keep it really simple because my ass needs to get to bed. I'm just gonna go through these shapes, okay? And I'm gonna do this in real simple kind, right? Real simple kind. Like I'm also we got to be mindful about like addition. It's actually about subtraction. This whole journey is about subtraction. In fact, it's like a crazy dichotomy, which is pretty much a fancy way of saying it's a head fuck because actually this system is about unlearning and subtracting. So I want to give it to you like this. Human design, if you look at it like it's human decolonization. Human decolonization. This is what me and Matua John in Hawaii, my teacher, he's passed on, but this, we had this wānanga once and I was like, he was like, babe, he's like, this is what human design is decolonization. It's the removing of unnatural ways of thinking that we've picked up. That was coming to my soul that day that we had that wānanga. I was like, ugh, we have so many things, beliefs that we've picked up, stories, narratives, ways of being that we've picked up over the years. Tons of them. Are they ours? Are they actually in alignment with the potential of what was given to us when we came through? Are they? That's the experiment. Whenever you get a reading, whenever you hear this mātauranga, this knowledge, it's not gospel whānau. It's not concrete. It is, they are seeds. They are potential. They are dependent on how it feels in your body. Let me give you this also. Human design is about returning the decision making abilities back to our body. It's about listening to the wisdom of our body. It's about listening to the nature of us. So, listening to me or listening to anyone else on the internet about what you should do is not it. These are just clues. These are clues. These blueprints themselves are just clues, maps, blueprints. That's it about what you could choose for you if it feels correct. And then there's even a way to like show you how inside your body will feel or react when you're receiving information from the external coming in, when you're receiving information that is correct for you. There's a way to know how your body's designed to react when there's incorrect when there's incorrect information, resources, things coming to you, and when there's correct information, resources coming to you. Kapai, good, sweet. So it's all about listening to the body and less about like, oh fuck, I gotta get this all down, man. Like it's not gospel. I'm a projector and I'm designed to guide, and that's all I'm doing is guiding, just throwing a few clues out there, right? A few clues, and like you'll be picking, you'll be taking what you need and leaving what you don't. You'll be going, oh yes, this is the guidance I need, or you'll be like, oh no, what is she even on? Okay, so just bear that in mind. This is a long as intro, 27 minutes. Anywho, the shapes. There's a body, right? This is a body graph. This is our head. This is our mind, or it's also called ajna. Throat, identity, or G center. Heart, or will center. Solar plexus, sacral, root, spleen. Okay? Think chakras. Why are there 9? I know the answer, but again, simple kind. Apparently, at some point, some year that I have written down somewhere, we morphed and evolved into a 9-centered being from a 7. So if you think chakras, that's 7. Okay, 7 centers. You usually see the blue, the chakra system. We evolved into a 9-centered being according to the teachings of human design. So that's why there's 9. What role do these centers play? They're energy centers. The head takes in energy differently to the mind, the throat, the G center, etc. They have different themes, they have different purposes. The mind processes information. The solar plexus processes emotion, right? The spleen governs fear and survival and the health of our being, right? The sacral generates energy to work, to create. They've got different roles. different purposes, and therefore different tendencies, different themes. When we go through a reading, depending on what intuitively pops out to speak to a person about their centers, their energy centers, right? I will go into, the ones that pop out. So now that's the centers, okay? And again, there's layers and depth to the corridor that you can go into about the different centers. Now, what are all the numbers? And what are the lines? And what are the, okay? We're going to be here all night. Again, with simple kind, basics, surface kind talk right here. Why are some colored? Okay. So, colored centers are where we have like a source of energy in that center. So, my head and my mind have a consistent source of energy within them all the time. My spleen and my root have a consistent source of energy that I have access to at all times. They're pretty, you could say, solid, unless they're not, right? And what do I mean by that? I could still have been conditioned through my upbringing to not know how to stop, for example. Yeah? Which is the root. The root gives you like go. Anyway, for the most part, when you have a defined center or a colored center, it means you have a consistent source of energy pertaining to that center that you've got access to. So what does it mean when they've got no color in them? Well, some you'll see I've got the numbers highlighted. So this one, and the solar plexus here, I've got some numbers that are active, some gates that are active in these three centers, but these two I do not. I've got no gates that are defined. So just like the colored centers that I've got a consistent source of energy to access throughout my life, when it comes to the non-colored centers or the undefined, I still do have access to the energy in these gates, right? 16, 23, 35, 45 in the throat. So I've got access to energy in those gates. However, with these open centers, okay, these are wide open, these are open centers. I don't have any gates that are defined that I can access energy, and I don't have the center itself. So there's no source of energy in there for me. They're wide open. Wide open to what? Open to and susceptible to being conditioned. So what happens when you've got undefined or open centers is that they are open to conditioning more so than these centers because there's a consistent source of energy in these centers. So these open centers, what they do and the undefined is we absorb the energy of others and then amplify it. So depending on who we're around, who we've been brought up by, who's in our circle, which is why that saying, you know, watch who you're around. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's actually really useful because literally, if we look at it through our body graph, when we have open centers, we are actually absorbing and amplifying the other. Okay. So that That right there, simple kind, like high level kind, that's the power of the body graph and our body. So, what Uncle John always taught me was the most important thing for people to understand is these open centers. Because when when these are conditioned, when when we are mm, absorbing the other or others and amplifying and expressing ourselves back out as what we've absorbed, it gets tricky because it's what we call our not self. It's not actually our self, like expressing. It's because of what we're bringing in, what we're absorbing. So the key is to know this. It's to know yourself. That's the most powerful thing. I always say, like, I've got, like, know yourself to be able to grow yourself and then show yourself as your unique self. Rewind that if you need. When we just know that, okay, my sacral center is wide open. It's an open center for me. I don't have any sacral energy in there. But yet I'm working, working, working all day, all night. Da, 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 da. You know, when I know that about me, then I can respond. That's a shit pun because the sacral response. I can engage with my environment differently. That's what I want to say. When I know that I'm open, when I know the themes of these centers and how the signatures of them, like for example, we'll take the heart center. The heart center is all about our worth and our value and our self-esteem. And when we're conditioned or when we are not all the way in our power, the heart center dialogue can start to sound a little bit like in the mind, it can start to sound like, yeah, you're just not good enough. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Or are you sure that, it's this doubt around our worth. And when we know the themes of these centers, then we can catch them. We can catch the dialogue happening in our mind. And our not self is talking through our mind, and we can catch it and we can engage with our life differently. So instead of maybe acting on the dialogues of these open, not like these open centers in our not self, instead of like taking it as like truth and like, feeling shit about ourselves for a day or two, we can just engage with ourselves differently and take ourselves a little bit more lightly. And now I say things like, you know what? That's a nickname my mind biscuit, and it's a little bit of a story that I don't maybe we've got time for, but it's a little something like one of my cutters told the story about this dog that was named Biscuit, and it got out of the house and ran down the road, and the owner was like running down the road screaming Biscuit, Biscuit. Anyway, fucking had to be there. But can you imagine it? Like someone running down the road yelling biscuit and it's the name of a dog, but people don't know that. Anyway, our minds run away on us and start listening to these dialogues and taking off on us and making us believe and act on all kinds of shit. When we know the themes of these centers, we know the dialogues and we know that it's just Biscuit running down the road and he'll be back when he gets hungry. Okay? So we can just be light with ourselves and engage with ourselves, life, others, the situation differently. So that's that is when I work with people more long term on their designs, because we can only cover so much in a reading, it is about getting people to shift their perspective on how they treat themselves and how they engage with themselves, right? So that is just all we've got time for in this here video, but that's the power of the centers in our body graph. And the next video, I will continue or move into a different arena, maybe go into some of the channels here and some of the other stuff. But I think that's kapai, that's a good place to end for today. PS, it just felt so enjoyable making this video. Like, I have been making content for 9 years and I have had a bit of a break. A bit of a break, about 3 year break, where I just have not had the juice or the energy or the desire to want to like create content. You know, people have invited me so many times to like share stuff on human design, da 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 da. I just have not had it within me to share it. And there was a beautiful call out from some powerful women in my world just this last week that's gone, and just some tohu or some signs where it's all been about like it is time to just step into your power and just step up and just share the stuff. So I'm designed to share. This is what my channels are about, which I'll probably go into in the next video. I am um, a splendid projector with collective circuitry in my channels. I'm built to share. Like, I am built to share what I know, all my stories, everything, mash it all up. You love it. So that's what I'm doing now. And I know myself enough, and I've you know, done some inner work over the last couple of years to really prepare for this moment to share for you guys, so that you can get to know yourself and understand how you're uniquely designed to move in the world, operate in the world, communicate in the world, to share things to help you say yes to more of the shit that lights you up and no to more of the stuff that don't light you up, and to be like your best version, because it's your best version that inspires your whānau, your family. That's what like, you being your best version is what inspires those around you, not what you do or by living life, according to the standards of society. It's you letting your inner fucking joy shine the hell out. Those are all mixed up words. Shine the hell. Okay. It's about you letting your joy and your delight for the life that you're walking shine out. And when you are doing that, people around you are like, let's go, right? So that's why this is why I'm sharing this mātauranga. Kapa Ora Collective is about, uplifting and bringing people together, not just physically, but take one person and bring them together whole, right? Bring us back into right relation with ourselves. That's what Kapa Ora is all about, as well as bringing people together. We have good time and some wānangas and kōrero, some catch-ups and good chats, and networking and, all the vibes. But at the end of the day, it's about being our best versions so that more of our youth and our rangatahi see, this is how we be our best version, and then they are inspired to be all that they can be. Even though they are inspired as fuck anyway, we just gotta be our best version so we can get out their way. Okay, we'll leave it there for tonight, and I will see you again. Ka kite.